Hey, how's it going?
Sir, are you okay?
What? Oh, this? It's probably nothing. I'm sure it'll go away.
Go away? But, sir, that can't be good.
No, it's cool. Really.
Do you want a napkin or something?
Everything's fine. Thanks.
You wouldn't ignore this. So why ignore the signs of a stroke? At the first warning signs, call 911 immediately. Because time lost is brain lost.
Hello, welcome to another edition of Road to Recovery, where we do our best to provide hope and help and healing and wholeness for those who are struggling with addictions or those family members and friends who have loved ones who are struggling. We're coming to you from the Recovery Center, 201 South Columbus Street in downtown Lancaster, and it is very much a privilege to bring the Road to Recovery program to you today. I'm your co-host, Steve Rao, and co-hosting with me is the Executive Director of the Recovery Center, Tricia Saunders. Welcome back to the Road to Recovery.
Hello, how are you doing?
I am doing great. Good. It is wonderful to be back in this fabulous new facility here at the Recovery Center. You've invited our guest with us today. She is Deb Smith, the President of the Board of Trustees for the Recovery Center. Welcome to Road to Recovery.
Thank you so much. I'm so pleased to be here.
It is a privilege to have you here. We want to understand a little bit more about what you do and why you do it, but where are you from originally?
Well, actually, I was born in Guernsey County in Cambridge, Ohio, and moved to Fairfield County when I was in the 4th grade and went to school at Fairfield Union, but have lived in the area since that time with a short stint in Minnesota.
Short stint in Minnesota. Who took you to Minnesota?
My husband's job was he was transferred, and we lived in Minnesota for 8 years. It was a wonderful experience, wonderful people, and a lovely place to live. But coming back to Fairfield County was certainly a wish fulfilled for us.
Yeah, wonderful. Were the two of you blessed with children?
We do. We have 2 children and 4 grandchildren.
Very good.
Our son lives in Maryland. He happens to be an emergency department physician, and our daughter lives here in Lancaster in Fairfield County.
Wonderful. Now, you said your husband, is that Dave Smith, the mayor of Lancaster?
It would happen to be him.
Same
yes,
guy.
It is.
How about
amazing
that?
How that works.
Yeah, did you and Dave get married on the same day?
We did. We arranged it that way,
Did
and I
you?
think we started a trend.
Did you?
Yes.
Yeah. You know, my wife and I did that too.
Well,
so
great.
I didn't know
I'm
if
glad
everybody
you followed
did that.
up.
Yeah, we did. We followed your lead. Thank you for
You're
leading
welcome.
in that way.
You're welcome.
You obviously, as the president of the Board of Trustees here at the Recovery Center, have a real heart for those who are struggling with addictions and so forth. How did that get stirred up in your heart?
Well, there are actually 2 reasons that I feel very humbled and privileged to be on the Board of Trustees and to work with such a wonderful group of other trustees. The first is, as with most people, my personal life has been affected by addiction. And I have lost a family member because of that affliction. When this happened, resources like the Recovery Center were not available. So I am doing much of what I'm doing in memory of my brother and in honor of him, and in hopes that others do not have to go down the path that he went down. But in addition to that, like many in this wonderful community, I feel a need to serve the community in as many ways as I possibly can. And when you think of both of those as being an equal in my life in terms of remembering and honoring my brother and being very concerned about those who have addictions and also wanting to serve the community, this seemed like a perfect opportunity for me.
It also fits really well with your background and your expertise.
Well,
Can you
that's
talk to us
true.
about that?
Sure. I'm a physical therapist by training. I've been a physical therapist for 27 years. I also teach at Ohio University Lancaster. I teach health topics there. So I'm always interested, as a part of my job, but also personally in cutting edge information about health. And addictions, both locally and nationally, have become a true threat to public health. So it's something that I want to stay informed about and involved in all aspects of my life.
I have to tell you, Steve, she came and talked to, Deb came and talked to our staff at a staff meeting about addiction. And I think the counselors, they've all been to school for a lot of years to do what they do.
Sure.
And I think they were thinking, what is our board chair going to tell us about addiction? And by the time she was finished, they were asking if she could come back for an all-day training. So
Yeah.
you know a lot about what we do here.
Well, I appreciate that, and certainly anyone who studies health and who is aware of the trends right now would be just as informed. But I just felt privileged that I was able to come to your group and help out too. Although I do think some of the jokes that I told were part of the reason that they want me to
Well,
come
that could
back
be
as
too.
well.
It's good to have a sense of humor.
That's right.
Yeah, especially, let's face it, this is a very heavy subject.
It is.
You talk about losing loved ones. I don't know that there's anybody in Fairfield County that hasn't been touched in some way, shape, or form by this issue of addiction, whether it's alcohol or drugs or other things. And so, certainly, it is a very heavy topic. It's good to be able to share a laugh for sure. Someone said, if you don't laugh about it, you end up crying
That's
most of
right.
the time about
That's
that.
right. That's very true.
So talk to us about chemical dependency and how that comes to be.
Well, there are lots of ways, and I do not hold myself out at all as an expert on chemical dependency. The people here who work at the Recovery Center certainly are on the front lines, and their education supports their abilities here, and they have things available to them through the state organizations that we cooperate with, that the Recovery Center cooperates with, to help them in that. But from my perspective as an educator and as someone who's very interested, you know, addiction is an enormous public health problem. And everyone's focus is on public health right now, with the changes in healthcare reform, with everyone understanding the cost of healthcare, what it's doing to this country and our community from an economic standpoint. There are many ways to approach addiction and to look at it. Certainly we care about every individual that comes here. We want to do the very best job that we can. And as a board member and a board president, our responsibility as a board is to work closely with the staff to assure that what's happening here at the Recovery Center supports the community and the community's needs. Well, those needs can be looked at in several ways, but based on my background, there's something called the biopsychosocial model of addiction that I teach in my courses at OUL, so my students will be familiar with that term. And what it talks about is this wraparound approach to addiction. Addiction is not singular, either in its effects or its causes. And one of the things that I think people don't realize is that from a biological perspective, addiction, or the use of illicit drugs and alcohol, gambling, other addictions,
Sure.
change the morphology, the shape and function of your brain. And they do that when you ingest a chemical, alcohol, or you're engaged in an activity in a certain way that stimulates certain centers in your brain. You know, right in the center of your brain is what we call the primal part of the brain. And part of that is the hippocampus and the thymus gland. I know you remember that from biology.
I do. Yep.
And I'm
You were gonna
sure
say
that,
that,
yeah,
yeah.
and you go over it every day,
Yeah, I
so you
do.
reacquaint
Took
yourself.
copious notes. I
There you
take.
go. There you
I relook at them at least once a week.
There you go. And I'm glad you do.
But thank you for reminding me anyway.
Because those parts of our brain allow us to survive. And when we ingest certain chemicals, what happens is the chemical messengers from that deep primal part of your brain get irrevocably changed. So your brain changes. Now, what's really interesting about that is that most people that I talk to, and I'm sure a lot of the people that come here to the Recovery Center, think to themselves, this is a behavioral problem.
Right.
I am, quote unquote, choosing this path, or the addiction that I have has forcing me to make choices that I don't want to make. And all I have to do is just tell myself, stop, don't do that.
I wish it was that easy.
Yes,
Yeah,
we do.
no
But
kidding.
what's tragic about your comment, Tricia, is that many people believe that it is
Sure,
that
I know.
easy. And then that leads to prejudice, and it leads to misinformation against those people who are struggling with addiction,
Yeah.
because we assume it is a matter of willpower.
Why don't you just stop?
Yeah, and you and I all sitting here, if it was just a matter of willpower that I am addicted to Starbucks,
Right.
then I would lose the 10 pounds and stop having the macchiato every morning.
Right.
It's not a matter of willpower. What it is a matter of is that our brains change fundamentally. They even change in shape. Parts of the brain stop functioning. When you take a contrast MRI of the brain of someone who has been using, for instance, meth or cocaine, you actually see black or dark areas in the brain indicating lights out.
Yeah.
No activity going on. And that's because those chemical messengers are now telling the brain, we don't really need you. This person is providing stimulus out other than you, so you can just stop behaving. Well, the bad part about that is that primal part of the brain initiates and releases chemicals that help with memory, learning, language development, emotional attachment, visual cues, and auditory cues.
That's
So,
everything.
yeah, everything. So now you are a completely changed individual. The tragedy right now is we have identified medically some drugs that can replace the illegal drug to try to maintain at least some stability in your brain, but we don't yet have drugs that will repair that damage. And so the individual is forced to live now with a changed brain.
Yeah.
Inside that brain, there are cues that are telling them to do things that will reinforce the addiction. And that's where the other two parts of this model come in, the psych and the sociological part. So we need medical treatment, which the Recovery Center here can provide. We need psychological treatment, counseling, group activities, reinforcement.
Which
We
the
need-
Recovery Center can
That's
provide.
right. And we need sociological models, group therapies, people who mentor. You know, that's the old 12-step program, right?
Right.
You have a mentor who pulls you
Sponsor.
aside, a sponsor, and helps you to deal with this new reality.
Yeah.
So what, as a board, what makes us very proud to be involved in the Recovery Center is that, to their best ability, the Recovery Center acknowledges that model, realizes what a tangled problem this is, helps individuals recognize that because of some of their behaviors, they now are dealing with a changed perception of the world.
Yeah.
And that they have to learn how to live and behave in that new world. And that is quite a struggle.
That's really
Quite
what we
a
talk
struggle.
about on this program, about wholeness.
That's right.
It is the whole person.
Yes.
Mental, emotional,
Yes.
physical, spiritual.
Yes.
The entire framework of the structure of a person is impacted by the addiction, and that's why there needs to be a multifaceted approach in order for them to get healing and help.
That's right, and that's why the board, in working with the Recovery Center, is very respectful of the challenges that the Recovery Center faces. And we work with the Recovery Center staff to understand what concerns there might be, whether they're fiscal concerns or personnel concerns, and how can we ensure that the community is being served in the best possible way by the Recovery Center. So one way to think of the Board of Trustees are community ambassadors.
Yeah.
Who have a very, very strong interest in seeing the Recovery Center being the best that it can be.
Outstanding. We got a couple of minutes left. We like to provide hope on this program. You've very clearly laid out for us what some of the challenges are. Are there medical advancements or other therapies that are being developed that would provide hope for the future, that maybe the addict can get to complete wholeness and healing?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked that question, because that's certainly something that I try to follow and be informed about. I think I might surprise you a little bit when I tell you that some of the best research is right now being done with dementia patients. Because through working with people who have dementia, we're starting to understand the brain a lot better.
Sure.
And we're understanding the mind-body connection. So as that research continues, and most of that is occurring at the University of Pennsylvania, not all, but most of that is occurring there, we're starting to understand how we might be able to develop medications to help with addiction and this changed brain chemistry, because that's what dementia is too. It's
Sure.
changed brain chemistry.
Exactly.
So there's definitely help and hope on the biological aspect. In addition to that, therapy approaches are now being much more respectful of that biological change, and so people are beginning to do research and understand how we need to take new approaches to talk therapy, to conditioning therapy, to take into effect that learning has been changed by this changed brain. So I am very hopeful that over the next 10 to 15 years, we will be astounded at the number of new approaches that are available for trial. And I think what we'll find is there's no one answer.
Yeah.
There's no one solution. Certainly you know from the clients that you see here, every individual is unique.
Yeah.
Just like every student is unique in a classroom.
Sure.
And we will always struggle to meet everyone so that they can be at their best capacity.
We have
No
people-
magic pill, silver bullet.
Yeah, we have people who have experienced a lot of trauma, and you
Yes.
talked about gambling addiction. I think we're all going to be hearing a lot more about that
Yes.
down the road, and I think that we're going to be looking at our approaches to dealing with those types of issues because they're a little bit unique compared to substance abuse. So.
That's right. That's right.
Tricia Saunders, you got to be excited about having leaderships from Deb Smith and the rest of the
Sure
Board
am.
of Trustees, knowing that kind of support that you're getting, certainly that knowledge base and passion for the work that you and your staff and volunteers are doing. It's got to give you quite a sense of security and safety.
It sure does, and you know we've spent a lot of energy in the past year with regarding our location and that aspect of the services that we provided. Now I'm excited that we can start looking more internally at the structure of our agency, the services, and take the next steps in that direction.
I agree, and the board is certainly poised to be as supportive as possible and to continue to challenge the Recovery Center and ourselves to make sure that the community is getting the service that they deserve.
Outstanding. We've done a great job up to this point, and I believe the future is very bright for the Recovery Center. Final question, do you really write the speeches for Mayor Smith?
Oh, that's a secret that I'll take to my grave. I don't think that he really needs that much of my help. That's the party line.
Oh, that's the party line. Okay. Well, I'll wait and keep an eye on the obituaries,
There
and
you
then
go.
I'll be able to know when I can find out the real answer there. We've been meeting with Deb Smith. She is the president of the Board of Trustees for the Recovery Center. The Recovery Center's new offices are at 201 South Columbus Street. They are open and available to you. If you give them a call, 740-687-4500, they'll find a time that's best for you. If you're struggling with addiction or you have a friend or family member or loved one that is struggling in the addiction area. Again, that number is 740-687-4500. For my co-host, Tricia Saunders, the Executive Director of the Recovery Center, I'm Steve Rao as we continue on our journey down the road to recovery.
I didn't need help from anybody. I was good at everything. And this, the drugs and the alcohol, I couldn't stop doing it. I went down a path of destruction, just about escaping the feelings. I never used one without the other. It was chaos. A dump truck, insanity plowed into us. I know it was the devil. I actually got suspended from baseball. I said, I need help, but I can't do it anymore. I fell on my own. You do with me what you want to do with me, but I surrender.